Dhananjay Sinha is with us to talk about the market, earnings, stocks, but also, of course, talk about what can be expected out of the budget, or maybe before the budget. Dhananjay, it's a pleasure. Thank you very much for your time. I mean, you're a close watcher of the political economy. You heard our colleague Sapna and Timsy talking about, the basic income support scheme and something with taxes, but to your mind, briefly, and we can delve a little deeper with more questions, what is likely?
So my sense is that clearly with the upcoming election, I think some of these issues will need to be addressed. I think some of the recent elections, in state elections that we have seen issues relating to farmers' distress and rural economy, and also with respect to young voters or first-time voters, job seekers, etc., getting impacted, and all those things are reflected in the elections. If you look at the demographic profile of the way people have actually sort of voted. So I think it is imperative for the current government to ensure that there are corrective measures that are done ahead of the May 2019 election, and you have a very small short window of opportunity. So I think the government is trying to do that, including measures to address the MSME, the way they are trying to push the banking sector, the tax slab that you're talking about, and also the direct benefit or the universal income scheme that they're talking about. The counterpoint essentially is that the tax revenues are actually falling short, with a big margin. And clearly, if you look at the gross tax collection, that's growing at something like 7% or 6 or 7%, and the nominal GDP growing at something like 11-12%. So the tax elasticity is less than 1, so it's about 0.6. So clearly, with all that the government is trying to do from a fiscal standpoint, there will need to be the government will need to find how to fund it. Clearly the tax collections are going to be falling short. So essentially, you will have to rely a lot on dividends, on one-off items, disinvestments that's still sort of falling short of the target. So they will need to step that up.
Sure, Dhananjay,
talking about this.
I just want to take that point forward with regards to tax collections, because one of the expectations, and our sources are telling the channel, that there could be some amount of income tax exemption limit which could rise to around 5 lakhs versus the current 2.5 lakhs. Do you think that's feasible given the paucity in terms of the tax collections?
Yeah, I think that will be a challenge, clearly a challenge, because you are increasing the slab. As you're reporting from 2.5 lakh to 5 lakhs, that's what the expectation is. There will be some amount of income tax losses. I think government will actually come up with what is their estimate. But clearly, there will be a sort of imperative on the tax collection front. Remember that the government has also reduced the GST rate. So I think both on the direct and indirect taxes, there will be impact. It would, the government can think that they can actually extract more taxes from corporates or higher income people, maybe improve on compliance, be more rigorous on that. I think those are the things that the government could do, but definitely on the face of it, it does look like it will sort of add to the shortfall that we're looking at.
Dhananjay, how will the market take some of this at this point in time? I mean, any shortfall, any of this will show up in the next year numbers. I mean, if, for example, this comes through with the budget, it'll come up in the next year numbers. A basic income support scheme will also be repetitive in nature, right? I mean, you could fund it via some transfers this year, but that is one time. What is the market reaction likely to be?
So just before that market reaction, on the universal basic income thing, I think we'll have to see how it will be designed. See, the thing is, if you're talking about, let's say, 10 crore people and you're giving roughly about 3,000 rupees per person or per month, it is going to be a substantial amount, roughly about 30,000 crores a month. So depending on how many months you are going to give, it will add up to the total spending. So I think we'll have to see how the government plans it. It is possible that they might actually rationalize other DBT or other entitlement that the government gives and sort of cluster it together. we'll have to see how it pans out. But clearly, the slippage on the fiscal side is something that is something which is clearly showing up. And some of these measures, even if it is prospective, I think even in this year there will be shortfalls. So I think it can be extrapolated. So I think from a fiscal standpoint, I think the market could be worried. And clearly, I would say on the bond market, I think as the liquid right now the yields are lower, but as the liquidity tightens and as supply of GSEC or deficit numbers are higher, I think yields can actually go up. So that is one reaction, I would say. From a market standpoint, from the stock market standpoint, my view is that there might be some traction in earnings, largely because the government could actually be spending, maybe front-loading some of the spending. You can't just be promising, you'll need to really show some spending. So I think that will also fructify ahead of the election. So I think some of the consumer-based companies or sectors can actually see some multiplier effect of that. So that is how we look at it. But at the broader market level, so Nifty range that we are looking at something like, we are not looking at a sort of a rally.
Sure.
We are looking at something like 11,000 to 10,400 is the range we are looking at ahead of the election.
Okay. All right, Dhananjay, we're going to leave it on that note. Thanks very much for joining in and speaking with us. So that's the view coming in from MK. For the markets, we're quite steady, so no problem coming in there. Dish TV, watch out for that. That stock is down around 3.5%. GNA Axles, which was one of the top gainers within the mid-caps yesterday, on account of numbers, is now seeing profit booking. So that stock is down around 1.9%. Well, on to a CNBC TV 18 exclusive then. The Modi government is gearing up to present its final budget before the 2019 polls. Sources tell us the centre may consider increasing the income tax exemption limit for individuals to 5 lakh rupees. Currently, the exemption threshold stands at 2.5 lakh rupees. But we have more.
Absolutely. I mean, sticking with the budget expectations, the government is understood to be weighing the options currently with respect to a basic income support scheme for farmers. Sapna is joining in with the details on this one. Sapna, over to you.
Well, that's what the indications are as of now, that probably we'll have to wait for Feb 1 for the vote and account format to be announced, because anything that they say will need an allocation for sure. We are very clearly given to understand that if the income scheme, quote unquote, the income scheme for farmers does come about, the important thing that we need to keep in mind is that it's going to be prospective. So anything that comes in will only be from the next crop season, most likely the Kharif season, picks up by around April something, or kickstarts from there onwards. So the new financial year is what you should be watching out for. So prospective in nature. And as I said, probably wait till the vote and account. But there's another side of the story that we are getting to hear very clearly, and that is basically the government probably would, like some dedicated funds to make sure that they can make the announcement. Because there are a lot of subsidy schemes in practice right now. The DBT format has already worked for a couple of them. Fertilizer has been under discussion for such a long time, that how do you do the fertilizer subsidies through DBT, and then, we've not really heard much on that front. So, a bit of a question mark as to what will really happen to those other subsidy schemes through the DBT. Will there be a further streamlining on that front as well if you're coming out with an income scheme? The fiscal parameters, the fiscal cost, of course, and how sustainable it will be. So I suppose that's where, they are waiting as of now. So no decision yet. But let's see if Feb 1 you hear something on the income scheme.